Okay, so I'm attempting this problem set today, consecutive strings. This task is it's asking me to get the longest consecutively concatenated strings within an array, which in Python is a list. So I am given a list with the variable str array, and I am asked to get the longest consecutive concatenated string within the list. So I am given a list variable str array, and I'm asked to get the longest consecutive concatenated string within the list and return the string. Now the string, the amount of items within the array to concatenate is based upon the value of k. So to summarize it, I am to return the longest consecutively concatenated string. I am to return the longest consecutively concatenated string to I am to return the longest consecutive concatenated string of k consecutive strings. So to reword that better, I am to return the longest concatenated string within an array consisting of k consecutive strings. Okay, array is the array that we are given. In Python, it is referred to as a list. K is the amount of consecutive strings we are to concatenate. And ignore me for all my spelling errors here. Cool. About this task essentially would be, first I'll iterate over the str array string, concatenating each item consecutively to the value of k. I will then check the length I will then store each value in a temporary. I will then store each value and check the length of each string, ensuring that the concatenated string with the highest, ensuring that the concatenated string with the longest length gets assigned into the variable. So these steps right here may look a bit different to what I am writing down now, but this is just a rough sketch of how I would potentially go about it. And finally, I will check any potential edge cases, right? And based upon the task requirements, it's essentially saying that n being the length of the string array, right? If n double equals 0, or if k is less than or equal, if k is less than or equal to 0, or if k is greater than n, then I am to return an empty string. So the only edge case I can see here is if n being the length of the string array and k being the amount of strings being the amount of strings to concatenate. If n double equals 0, or if k is less than 0, or if k is greater than n, I am to return 0. Cool. I'll tackle the edge case first, and essentially I'll write an if statement. If n is equal to 0, or if k is less than or equal to 0, or if k is greater than n, then I'll return an empty string. Right, and this should address the first. This should address any potential edge cases. I'm just going to check and run this first and foremost to see how this goes. Oh, what have I done? Oh, n is not defined. My bad. So in the actual test case here, n is the number of the array list. So to check so n string array in Python, I'll just put the string array in length over here, and I'll do the same over here, and that should fix that. Cool. All right, so I've passed a few tests here, right? Boom. So now to continue along with the challenge, I will then, what I will now do is, based upon my steps, I would iterate through the string array like so. So for index in range, length str array. The reason I'm using the range as opposed to a regular for loop setup is I want to, on the value of k, this will determine how many items within the list I need to concatenate to the current value of index. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. Able to identify with this example is that if I'm using a for loop and I'm starting on at this point here, which will be index 0, based upon the requirement, I need to concatenate 2 strings. So it'll be, the first concatenation will be the current index plus 1 index in front of the current index, tree falling, boom. So this will be the first, essentially this will be the first loop within the for loop. The second loop within the for loop would mean that I'm no longer at this index, but I am at index number 1, which is this. I then need to concatenate this string with an additional string, because we're concatenating to the value of 2. We're concatenating 2 strings, which will be the current index plus the following index in front of it. So we'll concatenate this too, and so on. So using that logic, I need to essentially make sure that I have enough room within the list, within the array, to be able to concatenate each item based upon the value of k. Meaning that if k was, for example, if k is to the value of 4, this would mean that the first for loop would be 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be the first for loop's concatenation string, right? So, and then the second for loop would be me starting on index number 1. I would then need to concatenate 4 items, because I'm assuming k is 4. I'm assuming k is number 4, which would then mean that I'll need to concatenate the current index plus, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Now, that's 2 cycles of the for loop. Now, the third cycle of the for loop would mean that I'll be at index number 2, I would then need to concatenate 4 items of the list array, which would then be 1, 2, which would be then 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. And now the next cycle of the for loop would mean I'll be on this index here. Now, because this requires me to concatenate 4 strings, at this index over here, I only have 3 strings available for concatenation. This would mean that I would run into an error if I kept on going with the for loop, right? I'll run into an out of bounds error of some sort. I forget the exact name of the error, but I'll fall into some kind of error here because I don't have enough strings to concatenate. I don't have enough strings left within the array. So I need to find a way to be able to stop the for loop of the array if I no longer have the amount of strings within the array to meet the requirement of k. So in order to do that, I need to using the range, I'm iterating through the string array, starting at index 0, and I need to stop it earlier based upon the value of k. So I need to stop it. I'll need to create. So this would be essentially minus k minus 1. Minus and 1 from k is that k concatenates consecutive strings together based upon the value of k, right? K is inclusive of the current index. So for example, k in this example equals 2. If I'm at index 0, 2 counts for the current index plus 1. 1, 2. So I'll always need to factor in the current index of where I'm at plus whatever amounts k is, which is inclusive of the current index. So this is why I'm minusing 1, because create variables to store the concatenated strings. So first variable I'll create here is concat str, and I'll assign it an empty string. I'll call this string prev concat. And what I'll do now is to create another for loop, essentially checking the value of k in this for loop. So I'm creating another for loop here for, I'm not sure why, for I in k, for I in range k. Now what I'm doing now in the second for loop is what I'm now doing is I'm assigning the concatenated string variable to plus equal str array the current index of where I'm at. So looking at this example here, if I'm on the first loop, the current index will be 0, 3, right? So this is the current index of where I'm at. And based upon the requirement in this example here, I need to concat 2 strings inclusive of the current index. So this would be 3 plus fooling, right? These 2. So to do that, I need to plus equal the current index's value, right? Actually, you know what? No, this might cause an error. What I need to do is this plus I. Now the reason I'm doing plus I is so the way this is going to play out is, let's just say if k is equal to 2, and if I put k equals 2, so the first iteration, when I go through the first for loop, let's just say I get 3. This is the first index I'm on, right? Boom. I'm now going through the second for loop within the first for loop. I'm going through the second for loop using I as a starting point and range k, which I'm putting 2 just for illustration purposes. So it'll be from 0 to 2 in this for loop, right? So the first iteration will be concat will plus equal str index plus I 0. The second loop will then be concat str, which is currently holding this value here, plus equals current index plus I, which is now 1. Boom. This now assigns these two. So after this for loop, if k is equal to 2, the concat.str will have the value of tree falling stored within it. Now to do a quick test, I'll just test it out here by adding a print statement and then printing the value of concat.str after the first for loop. And oh yeah, sorry, this was just for testing purposes. Boom. So and to make it more readable, I'll print the array here. Boom. All right, so this is the array that's passed in, and let me print the value of k as well. Print k. All right, so this is the values. This is the array that's passed in, and this is the value of k. So 2, and then the array is of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, length of 6, and k is equal to 2. So, and I'm printing the concat, and I'm printing the concatenated string here. So if I'm going through this for loop over here, at index 0, at index 0, having to concat 2 string items together, the first for loop would be zone Abigail. Boom. The second for loop will now be Abigail theta, which is not here. So there's an error here. It should be Abigail theta for the second loop, but I'm getting zone Abigail theta. Pause. I am not resetting the value of, so I need to reset the value back to an empty string after every for loop, just so concat.str isn't holding the previous concatenated strings value. As you can see here, the first iteration has zone Abigail. The second iteration is still now holding zone Abigail, right? Plus Abigail theta, which should be the right answer. But because I forgot to assign I forgot to change or reset the value of the concat string, I'm getting this problem here. But if I reset the value of concat string, no, I shouldn't be doing that. Okay, if I reset the value of concat string, perfect. So with an array list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items and k equaling the value of 2, the first iteration will equal to zone Abigail, as seen here. The second for loop will now be Abigail theta, because I'll be at index 0, and I'm to concat 2 strings. It'll be Abigail theta, boom. The third iteration, when I'm at index 2, will now be theta form, and so on. So as we can see here, the function of the for loop is working as it should work. Now what I need to do is I now need to check the length of each concatenated string. Right, now I need to check the length here. I'll create a variable, length str will equal the length of concat string, boom. Now if length string is greater than length previous concat. Now this value is still empty as of now. If the length string of the concatenated string after the for loop has been executed is greater than the length of the previous concatenated string, which is currently empty now, I now need to assign the previous concatenated string to equal concat string, boom. I now reset the value of the concatenated string. So on each cycle, if the next iteration of the for loop's concatenated string's length is in fact longer than the current value that is assigned to previous concat string, I am then updating that value to the previous concat string. So this becomes the variable that stores the concatenated string with the longest length, and this is the temp string, concat string store. So this stores the string temporarily for each for loop, and this holds the string, the concatenated string with the longest length. Boom. Now what I want to now do is, after everything has been executed, I want to now print, and this will essentially have, and this should then print the string with the longest length, because I'm constantly updating this value based upon the longest concatenated string after each for loop, right? So let's see what this brings about. And as you can see here, none should equal, and I'm printing, boom. So now if I was to turn this to a return statement, this should pass all the tests, and voila, it does. Now let me do the final test. Perfect. It has passed all the tests and it works fine. What I'll do is I'll just quickly take away all the print statements and boom. Perfect. So that's how I would solve that problem, the consecutive strings challenge. And I will now refactor the code.